Let's talk about the 4 ways that you can create a more engaging LinkedIn profile banner. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. The research shows that first impressions can be formed within as quickly as a 1/10 of a second. And your LinkedIn profile banner helps to form the first impression of your professional personal brand. If you think about your LinkedIn profile as being the shopfront for your professional personal brand, then your LinkedIn profile banner helps to form the window of that shopfront. So, as the window of the shopfront of your professional personal brand, how is it communicating for you? How is it selling the value that you have to offer the marketplace? Is it communicating that you care about your LinkedIn profile, or does it look neglected? Are you just using the default options on LinkedIn, or have you taken the time to update your LinkedIn profile banner? Does it help you when people come to your profile? Does it strengthen the value of your professional personal brand? Or is it actually hindering the impression that people have of your professional personal brand and maybe the professionalism or the value that you have to offer the marketplace? Keep in mind that it's said that over 60% of recruiters will check social media profiles of a potential candidate. If you work for yourself, then savvy clients and customers are also going to be checking your LinkedIn profile and getting a picture of what your personal brand represents and if they want to work with you. And when people see visual elements of any communication, this forms a really pivotal part of the emotional reaction that they have to that communication or to the person and to the brand that is communicating to them. So make sure that you are optimizing your LinkedIn banner to communicate what you want it to. When it comes to building your personal brand as a professional, this can be a really long game. So there aren't a lot of quick wins when it comes to personal branding, but updating the banner on your LinkedIn profile is one of those quick wins. It's the low-hanging fruit that you should be optimizing for your LinkedIn profile. So let's dive into my tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to show your credibility. If you follow this channel, you would know that one of my favorite frameworks comes from Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand, where he talks about a 7-part framework that you can use to communicate the value of your brand. So when you apply this thinking to personal branding, this gives you a formula to be able to work to show the value that you have to offer the marketplace. That 7-part formula breaks down into a character. The character is the hero in the story. That is not actually you. That is the potential person that you want to connect with. That's your potential customer, client, your potential next employer, or your potential contact. The character has a problem. They then meet a guide, and that is where you come in. You're not the hero of the story, you are the guide. And the guide has a plan. They call them to action. They show them what failure looks like and helps them to avoid failure. And they show them what success looks like. So what you want to do with your LinkedIn profile is make sure that it is communicating guide energy. So how are you communicating that you are a guide in a particular area? This is where you are highlighting your expertise. You're highlighting that unique value that you have to offer in the marketplace. You're showing that you can help to solve a particular problem. So for a potential client, this shows the problem that you can help solve. For a potential contact, this shows that you are the right person that they want to be connecting with for whatever it is that they are trying to achieve in their own individual goals. For a potential recruiter, this shows that you tick all of the boxes of what they are looking for in their next potential employee. The 2 elements that the Donald Miller framework highlights is that your guide positioning should focus on communicating empathy and communicating authority. So think about this when you are optimizing the design of your LinkedIn profile banner. Some of the ways that I think that you can do this, for example, when it comes to authority, is that you can use speaking engagement photos. You might use you presenting as a keynote speaker at an event if there is, details about what that event is, so people can associate you to that particular thing or that particular external brand, that third party, then that can also help to build trust in your brand by association. Maybe you weren't a keynote speaker, but you were part of a panel. So having photos of you as a part of a panel with, a microphone in your hand is always helpful because it shows that other people trust your expertise. You haven't just communicated your value, but you're communicating social proof that other people also trust the value that you have to offer the marketplace. Now, if you don't have speaking photos or you don't have panel photos, you might have written a book, for example, and you might have photos of your book that you can add to your LinkedIn profile banner. To make this even more engaging, this might be an event related to your book. So having those credentials as a published author helps to add to your expertise. Tip number 2 is to highlight your expertise. Now, if you don't have any speaking photos, if you haven't written a book, then don't worry, you can still highlight your expertise. When you have created your LinkedIn profile, it's likely that you have given a lot of thought in your About Me, in your skills section, in the descriptions of your job, to the skills and the key expertise that you have to offer the marketplace. And I talked about this in my previous episode on how you can optimize your LinkedIn profile headline. So when you are designing your banner, then keep in mind that a really easy way to be able to communicate the value that you have to offer the marketplace is by including that in the banner itself. So with the elements that you have taken into account for your About Me, you've likely thought about the search engine words that you want to be able to target. Consider adding that to your LinkedIn banner. So really anchoring the point in a visual way. Of course, it's text in the banner, but this helps to take it outside of just that really dense text-heavy format of your profile and put it into headlights in your LinkedIn banner in a more visual way. My tip number 3 is to tell a transformation story. When you are picking the visuals that you want to include on your LinkedIn profile banner, and keep in mind that you want to be keeping this as simple and clean as possible so that it isn't too cluttered, think about how you can actually tell a story with that visual. So this is the difference between picking a generic photo of, say, your office building, for example, as opposed to actually telling a story about the impact that your work has on the marketplace. So how do you actually help other people succeed? What is the transformation story? So if you go back to Donald Miller's framework, for example, this is that element number 7, this is showing them what success looks like. Think of this as taking them to the promised land of your professional personal brand. It's one thing to say what you do in a technical way and to communicate how and what you do, but it's another to show why that work actually matters or what that transformation can look like in the end. If you consider this as almost a before and after, this is the after photo. What is it that you are actually able to bring to a relationship or to a business or to a marketplace? Now, ideally, you would do this in a visual way to be able to create that emotional connection with people, but you could also do this in a text-based way, and this could be in the form of a really short and snappy catchphrase. So you don't want to clutter your profile too much, but if you can get down the key value that you have to offer a marketplace in just a few words, then you can use that little catchphrase on your LinkedIn headline. This can show your creativity, and it can also show how you view your personal brand in a really professional way, that you actually care about your personal brand in the marketplace and the impression that it is leaving on other people. Now, keep in mind that when it comes to the design of your LinkedIn profile banner, this does not need to be overly complicated. I just use Canva when I am designing any LinkedIn profile banners. They have a whole bunch of templates that you can choose from, and the program is so easy anyway that if you wanted to create something from scratch, you could, or you could pick a template and then start to customize it much further to the specifics of your industry. So you might pick a template and swap out the image to something that is more relevant to the transformation story that you want to communicate. You might pick a template and change the fonts throughout to be more consistent with the professional personal brand that you have developed and some of your branding in any other communications as well. And you might also be changing colors throughout to ensure that it is also consistent with the rest of your professional personal brand communication. And tip number 4 is to have a call to action. Now, you can decide whether or not your profile is starting to get a little bit too cluttered in your banner and decide whether or not you include this. But I think if you can include it in any way, then it can be really helpful, because if you go back to Donald Miller's framework, and this applies to all marketing and communication, a call to action helps to show people what it is that you want them to do. So that is an element of that 7-step framework. You are a guide with a plan who calls people to action. Don't underestimate that when you are communicating with someone, that sometimes they don't actually have front of mind what it is that you want them to do. And when you actually ask them up front, this allows them to have that little prompt trigger to then take that action. So this might be as simple as a couple of words just saying, "Let's connect," in your LinkedIn profile banner. Or if you don't want to include, for example, too many words around your expertise or a catchphrase, as we've talked about in the other tips, you might just have your profile banner be a really key call to action for some element of your personal brand, whatever it is that you want your audience to do. What is the priority of your goals? For example, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have a podcast, or you have a newsletter, that might be a part of your goals to really make sure that you are growing those platforms. You might pick even just one of those elements to focus on and have your call to action be to sign up to your newsletter. You design your banner around this call to action, or to subscribe to your YouTube channel, or to follow your podcast. Decide what the most important priority is for your call to action and consider this the goal of your LinkedIn profile banner. Just make sure that you are communicating the value that that particular call to action has. For example, if you do have a podcast or a YouTube channel, this might be saying that you release a new episode every Monday, for example. You're showing the value that they have if they actually follow through on that call to action. If you have a newsletter, for example, this might indicate that you send your audience a tip of the week every Thursday, for example. So show your audience what that upfront value is. If you want to learn more about the 4 ways that you can write a better LinkedIn profile headline, then check out my previous episode on this topic. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.